Yeah.
The first presentation is from a wonderful woman. She's called Wenche Løseth, and she's from Norway. She comes from Ulsteinvik, a small town in Norway. She's 65 years old and she's got 3 children and 6 grandchildren. She used to work in an elementary school as a student assistant. In March 2000, at the age of 39, Wenche suffered a serious brainstem stroke that led to locked-in syndrome. She became paralyzed throughout her body and needed help with everything. She could blink her eyes for yes or no. For 2 years, she was hospitalized in various rehabilitation institutions. During that time, her house was rebuilt and adapted with assistive technology. The goal was for her to continue to live her life and to remain in her house together with her children and family. Afterwards, computer became key tools for her and she was able to communicate with others. Wenche has written a book about her rehabilitation process and worked as a web editor in a kindergarten. She has also contributed to the book that's just been published. So this presentation explains Wenche's life and her life experiences. She's been very unwell recently and she had intended to do more work on her presentation, but she's had to send what she's done to me and I'm going to read it out to you all. So I apologize for some of my pronunciation because I'm not Norwegian, but I'll do my best. So this is Wenche doing a painting using her mouth. She's a highly skilled artist, as you can see. So I'll speak in the first person rather than change it all the time, but this is Wenche's words. My name is Wenche and I come from Ulsteinvik. I suffered a brainstem stroke and ended up in this situation on the 8th of March 2000. I need help with most practical tasks in my daily life. It's been a long road to get to the everyday life I have now. I live my life with my family, my 3 daughters and their children, and I live in my own house. Over time, I've reclaimed the roles that I lost on that March day in 2000. I've focused on the future because that's where I can make a difference. The past I cannot change. It's already lived. This is myself 2 months after the brainstem stroke. I couldn't eat, I couldn't speak, and my entire body was paralyzed. This photo is from a short visit home before I was transferred to Sunnaas Hospital from the Alisund Hospital. I'd been in the LiS state for 2 months and my rehabilitation had begun. For any of you who have seen previous webinars of ours, the Sunnaas clinic has done presentations for us and I actually went and spent some time working there. And I think Tina Fluke, who's talking about communication devices, I think she's also going to speak about Sunnaas. To regain control over my daily life, the word threshold came up already in the first week after I returned home, 2 years after being in a rehabilitation institution. This applied to people coming and going. My home and my body had become someone else's workplace. Everyone meant well and they wanted to help. The support system that was to be built around me, especially the nursing home services, planned the assistance that they would provide based on their own needs. I didn't dare to protest at first. My own politeness told me not to. I accepted most of it because I didn't dare to do otherwise. To the municipality, I was a patient who was not capable of making my own decisions. They hadn't taken the time to understand what kind of needs I had. I didn't know much about the situation I was in either. I couldn't find anything on the internet either. The only thing I was sure of was that I knew what I wanted. Maybe that was enough. This was my starting point. I quickly realized that I had to start somewhere. I had a switch installed so that I could operate the front door myself, so that I could open it on my own, preferably when it suited me. Then I forced myself to go outside, first to meet the local people, then more. I had spent a lot of time at home on leave, so I had some idea of where this path might lead. I then started working with the municipality to help them to understand that I wanted to live. I truly wanted to reclaim the roles that I'd had before, especially the responsibility of being a parent. My family and children were not considered topics by the support services. The words were there, holistic, but the practice was something entirely different. The municipality wanted to provide care to keep me alive on their terms. That was not what I wanted. I wanted help to live. This was many years ago, but I know that many still struggle with these kinds of attitudes in the support system today. and I would continue to fight this system for many years to come. I have BPA, user-controlled personal assistance, during the day and the evening. At night, I use home nursing services. I find it helpful to stay in touch with healthcare professionals as I need them from time to time. I chose this arrangement myself because it allows me to have some time during the day to myself. I've been clear about how I want things to be all along. I've found that when I am clear, it's easier for the support system to work towards the same goals with me. This is what's normal for me now. I have many unfamiliar hands on my skin. Under my skin, I let no one in. That's my private space to the extent that I have one. I've worked hard not to become bitter. It took many years before I could see myself as a resource and not a burden to others. The adjustment process is ongoing, and the grief over what I've lost is something I'm reminded of every day. I cannot get used to what has happened to me. That's just how it is. I use the Donald Duck method when I work on mental challenges. When negative thoughts come, I run them over with positive ones. I use a mental scale and let the heaviest side be positive, and I keep my focus there. It's not easy when everyday choices often feel like choosing between the plague and cholera. The downturns come from time to time, usually caused by things I cannot control. Most of the time I manage to get back up again, but the margins are small, and things can more easily trigger a domino effect. When the public sector continues introducing new rules, restructurings, and reforms, it's usually me who has to adapt to the regulations and the systems that I depend on top of finding new solutions in my daily life. This can apply to everything from advanced medical expertise to the most basic services in the municipality. I experienced becoming a case in the system when this happened. At first, I didn't reflect on it, but I began to miss my name, my identity. The system segregated me from the concept of being human. I also started reacting to how many people had opinions about me, often about things that I considered very private. 3 to 4 months after I moved back home, I received meeting notes from the municipality. Those involved in my home nursing care had held a staff meeting about my private life. I felt awful. The letter made me realize just how exposed I had become. Even my clothing preferences were mentioned because they were focused on what was easiest for them. I use a fair amount of resources at all times and try to protect myself. I work to preserve both my own and my family's integrity. Over the years, I've experienced changes. My municipality has become more flexible and provides much better accommodations today. In my experience, the NAV reform is much better than the old system. Digital development has made my life significantly easier and contributed to much more privacy. Not least, the development of assistive devices has been very positive. This is Wenche surrounded by her daughters and one granddaughter. She's very loved. When I'm out, I meet many people who don't quite trust me and are unsure. My voice doesn't inspire confidence in others. Everyone sees my disability, but what's between my ears, people don't see that. It can be both embarrassing and amusing when people try to figure it out. The people I meet in everyday life are average citizens. Average citizens aren't specialists in communication and disabilities. I don't think anyone can really expect them to be either. This is something that rehabilitation institutions need to think about more, preparing people to go out and to live their lives again in society. Fellow citizens perceive me very differently after this happened to me. It's not meant to be hurtful. Most are simply distressed on my behalf. Average citizens don't understand that I'm still the same person that I was before. A clear example of this is driving. No one can understand that I drive a car with the driver's license that I got when I was 18. Everyone just assumes I retook the driving test after my stroke. Many people associate strokes with having forgotten your past life and all your life experience. I'm no exception, especially when people hear my voice, even though they fully understand what I'm saying. Sometimes I choose not to use my voice at all, simply to avoid having to prove that I am trustworthy. Support and accommodations for communication are not a high priority in my municipality or at the Assistive Technology Centre that I belong to. I have had to manage communication on my own all these years. Even though I've asked for help many times, it seems that it hasn't been really considered important. Losing my voice has been the hardest part of my entire situation. In this area, I'm easily overridden by others. I communicate using my voice, eyes, and head movements. I prefer using email when communicating with strangers. I must admit, unfortunately, I've experienced many communication violations. Some of them were so serious that I had to address them afterwards. I've also learned how to prevent unpleasant situations. No one is allowed to touch my body until communication with the person who is going to help me has been established, so that I can explain what I need help with and be prepared for the activity that follows. It's a bit too easy for staff to get overly comfortable with my body, but it is my body. I've had and still have many thoughts and questions over the years. I guess that's just how it is. Here we see photographs of Wenche with the assistant walking behind her and supporting her. Sometimes she uses a regular climbing harness for support. She's fallen and hit the floor many times. She's got a good support system today, but in the end, it's still her that has to do all that work. Wenche's loved exercising her whole life. It's helped. I'm going to switch back into the first person. It's helped me tremendously in this situation. After 6 years of intense training, I managed to walk on my own using a walker. This has made everyday life much easier. I get up and walk several times a day. To date, I have around 18,000 hours of intense physical training outside of my wheelchair. It's the best spasm relief I can get. My threshold mile is asking my assistants, can you go get my walker? I feel better in every way when I train daily. I haven't reached my goals. They were probably a bit too ambitious, but I had no idea what to expect. I've trained hard to regain my voice and the ability to eat through my mouth again. I see training opportunities in everything I do. I've learned that limitations often lie between the ears. Lack of motivation only motivates me even more. I've also noticed that it's motivating for my support team. The most important thing for me is having my everyday life with my family. That is my daily rehabilitation. Without my family, I wouldn't have managed as well as I have. There was no support system for us as a family when we needed it the most. Holistic rehabilitation was not a practice in my municipality 25 years ago. Even in the rehabilitation institution, the family was not considered a topic. I've learned how truly important this is. Families also need care, maybe more than anything else. I've achieved my goal of creating the home and foundation my daughters need. That is the most important thing in my life. You can do what you want as long as you want what you can. Again, more photographs of Wenche with her family and friends, her brother and her sister. She's a very vibrant person. I'm the grandmother of William, Taylor, Isabel, Nicholas, Edel, and Olivia. My grandchildren love the mountains, the outdoors, and handball. I think that's wonderful, as I've hiked in many mountains across the country, played handball for 30 years, and skied a lot. We're a sports-loving family. Myself, my 3 daughters, and all my grandchildren are involved in sports. We spend a lot of quality time in the sports hall. Handball is our favorite, and we're 3 generations of goalkeepers for Hood Handball. Again, more lovely pictures. When it comes to assistive devices in general, there has been an incredible development, but at the same time, constant changes to rules and regulations can make things very exhausting. The biggest challenge with assistive devices is the waiting time, waiting for the device after the need has arisen. The same challenge applies to repairs of assistive tech equipment. I drive my own car using a joystick and have done so for 20 years. Why I wanted to do that is a long story, but I knew it was possible. Vehicle-related matters are often complex and can take a long time, so I started the process right away. They've come a long way in adapting driver environments in cars. In August 2018, I received my new car. Over those 13 years, the development has been incredible. I can't imagine everyday life without the ability to drive my own car. There's quite a bit of planning involved before a trip, but good planning makes a journey much more successful. I found out that traveling works well by first doing a trial trip. I need to bring the best wheelchair that I have. I found that flights lasting about 5 hours are the longest that I can manage without becoming too exhausted. The trip itself can be long. It's the number of hours without my wheelchair that I have to calculate in order to decide whether I can go. Some lovely photos of Wenche traveling and Wenche on holiday. I worked 2 days a week for 9 years, including a period of work training. I worked in a shared administration for several kindergartens, of course with the computer as my main tool. I stopped this work in the fall of 2013. I realized that working a little could be very beneficial. I had people who believed in me. At the time, it was the employment office, ETAT. They didn't get involved until the end, and there's a long story behind that. I've given many talks about my experience in various places around the world, mostly in Sunnmøre. Today, I partly make a living from my art. I paint pictures using my mouth, which I started doing in 2011 by chance. Someone suggested it might be good neck training. I must admit, I was a bit surprised myself by my first try. I've held 3 exhibitions in my hometown of Ulsteinvik. And there's photos of her exhibition and some of her paintings. She's incredibly talented. This painting is of Boursundet in Ålesund, and it's the largest that I've ever painted. I painted it right after a trip to Spain. At that time, my body was relaxed, also my neck and jaw. Wonderful colors, very vibrant. I'm a member of the Association of Mouth and Foot Painting Artists of the World, which gives me a fixed monthly income. In return, I have to submit 5 paintings over the course of the year. I get them back within about 3 years. I've been a member for 7 years. I had an exhibition in a kind of barn in the autumn of 2023, and I sold an incredible amount. More pictures of her art in the background there. In my previous professional life, I mostly worked at the largest shipyard in Ulstein. I've been involved in various activities, especially sports, marching band, and outdoor life, not least as a parent. Life experience I have not forgotten. I create strategies to reach the goals that I set. Sometimes I have to give up. Then I try a new strategy. When resignation sets in, I can experience it as something positive, because that's when I feel my shoulders drop and I can use the energy that's freed up for other things. Beautiful bird in flight there. I've received quite a bit of media attention back home in Sunnmøre. On those occasions, I've been able to highlight many important issues, especially around accessibility, inclusion, attitudes toward having a stroke, and prejudiced assumptions. I've been able to put the spotlight on the boxing in of myself and others. I've also spoken out through opinion pieces and letters to the editor in the local newspaper. I rarely do that, but when I have, it has been necessary, and I've found that speaking up actually works.